Hey there, and welcome to a new series. I don't know, mini series that I'm doing because there's only going to be 3 episodes. But it's probably something I'm going to do yearly because it's probably going. Shoot, I might even do it biannually because it's probably going to change the way my mind changes all the time. But I was originally setting out to do a top 10 video game list. I was going to give you my top 10 video games of all time, and so I just started making a list of games and I got to 30 and I stopped myself at 30. Though as I was preparing this, because like I said, 3-part series, today is going to be games 30 through 21. I was like, oh, I left this game off, I left this game off, I left this game off. So a couple of those got added into the list, and a couple of those like, well, we're going to do a little honorable mention section to start this video off. But yeah, I just want to say this is my personal top 30 list. I mean, has nothing to do. Some of these games, they are highly critically praised games, so there are going to be some critically acclaimed games on this list. Some of the older games, I have no idea where they rank as far as critical ranking or anything like that. What the critics say, what the fans say. They're just some of my personal favorites that I like. So I definitely encourage you guys in the comments here, in the comments of the last video, all 3 videos, to let me know what your favorite games are. You can give me your top 30, you can give me your top 10, your top 5, but just what you like, what you think is a great game. So without further ado, let me roll into the honorable mentions section first. I'm just going to touch on those real quickly. I'm not going to go into detail. The top 30, I'm going to go into more detail when I talk about them. But first up on the honorable mentions, the Forza series. When it comes to like a racing game series, sometimes it's really hard to pick a favorite because they kind of evolve. Like they start like Forza started out on the Xbox 360. I don't remember. I really got into it on the 360, but I think it did start on the Xbox, the original Xbox, and it just kind of got better all the time. In the last couple Forza games, except for the brand new Forza Motorsports, I couldn't get into that one, but the previous Forza Motorsports and the Horizon games, I really, really like. So I can't really distinguish which one I like better than the other. So I just put that whole series there, which that will pop up a couple times on this list. I don't think on today's list though, but when we get into the top 20, there will be a couple games where it's like, I picked the series. I didn't really pick a game out of the series because they kind of all tell a chapter, and not one really like head and shoulders to me stands out above them all. They're all part of the evolution of that series, and the best version of that game wouldn't be the best version without the previous versions and things like that. So there's a couple series in there. So Forza series right there, and keeping with series, the Sonic the Hedgehog series, the original Genesis versions 1 through 3 / Sonic and Knuckles. Those are all great. It really hit its stride with 2, 3 Knuckles are the better ones. But I mean, there's of those 4 games, 3.5 games, Sonic and Knuckles. I don't know if that's because it's kind of like early DLC. It's not really its own game. It's just an add-on to Sonic 3. But yeah, as far as those games go, Sonic 1 hits that nostalgia button for me and brings back more fond memories than the other Sonic games do. And it's not because I think it's necessarily better, but it's, I don't know. It was the first Sonic game I played, and boom, it really hits it there for me. Next up, we got Mario RPG. You can take the original, you can take the remake. I actually think I like the remake a little bit better, but I mean, overall, it's the same game, just kind of improved graphics a little bit. Modern conveniences to that game that probably give it a little edge out of the original SNES version that was done by Square and Nintendo. But that one's an honorable mention. Next one, probably only you hardcore old gamers like me are going to know this one. War Games for the ColecoVision. It is based off of the Matthew Broderick War Games movies, except you're not playing as Matthew. Well, I guess you kind of are, but you are doing the war games that Matthew Broderick thought he was playing with that computer. So you're playing that war game that led to almost nuclear holocaust in the movie. Really good 80s movie. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, that was a fun ColecoVision game. My dad had a ColecoVision before I was born, so even before I got my first Nintendo, we had a ColecoVision, and I really, really loved it. In fact, my cousin has his own ColecoVision that he offered up to me, so I got to go down and pick that up at some point. So I'll add ColecoVision somewhere back there into the collection. Next up, just Pac-Man. Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, just the old school Namco arcade Pac-Man. Just so much fun. Like I've got arcade one up over there of Miss Pac-Man. I think it has regular Pac-Man on it too, but it's also got Galaga and a bunch of other things. It's just a fun, hey, I'm going to play for a couple minutes, and that turns into 10, 30, 40, couple hours kind of game, just because you just have fun. It's just repetitive. It's fun. And I'm also going to include with that, as far as the series, like the Pac-Man Championship Edition, some of the more modern versions of the original Pac-Man. They're just a lot of fun to play. This one's going to be controversial because I think a lot of people think these games, because it's part of the series, probably should be in my top 10. And when I get into the top 10, there's a game in that series that is in there. I'll explain why, but Final Fantasy 4 through 6. I really like those games. They're a lot of fun. And I love the Final Fantasy games. But with it just doesn't hit the same notes as a lot of the games in this top 30, because one thing about my top 30, most of these games I've played several times. Like I've played through several times, not just beating it once and put it away. Where Final Fantasy 4 through 6, I'm only playing through them like a second and third time now with the Pixel collection that came out on the Switch and the PlayStation 4. So it's just because they're long and everything like that. The story stuck with me and I really enjoyed them, but they weren't games that I immediately wanted to go back to. Which a lot of these games on this top 30 are games that I went back to many, many times to play. So that's the only reason why they didn't make the top 30. I thought about like, where can I shoot these in? Where can I shoot these in when I was coming with the honorable mentions? And I have no idea when I made this top 30 that I didn't think of it. But I mean, that's kind of a clue why it's an honorable mention, is I didn't think of it. It wasn't, when I was listing out these games, they weren't, even though I'm playing 6 right now on my Switch, they weren't games that I immediately thought of to put on this list. So they are great games, don't get me wrong. And if they're in your top 10, your top 5, I wouldn't blame you. They're awesome. They're definitely 3 of my favorite Final Fantasy games of all time. Next up, Mario Odyssey. This one could have been kind of shoehorned into the top 10 with something else, and I'll talk about that when I get to those games. Kind of a hint. But it's a great game. It's a great Switch game. Not a launch game, but in that launch window, that first year, I love Mario Odyssey. I couldn't put it down when I got it. I was either playing on my TV, I was playing on the train into work, I was playing it on the couch while watching baseball or hockey. So just a great game. I'm going to blow through the next 3 because these are all kind of modern games. Cyberpunk 2077. I never had any game-breaking glitches when it first came out. So I never had a reason to put it down. I played through it, loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. With the DLC, when that goes on sale, I think I'll pick it up and play through it again. These next 2 I platinumed on the PlayStation. And I really, really like them. And this first one, Ghost of Tsushima, I was looking for a spot to put that on my top 30. It's like, I don't know why I didn't think about this, because I could not stop playing that game when I got it, and I love it. I can't wait for a sequel to come out for it. Played through all the DLC. Like I said, platinumed it. Great game. And the next one, Death Stranding. This game, it was a game I'd get lost in. I would literally just spend an entire evening building roads for me and all the online people. Not even like progressing in the game, but building roads to make all the deliveries and side deliveries easier. But like I said, I platinumed both those games because I couldn't put them down when I got them. They were so close making the top 30, but once I platinumed them, and there's New Game Plus for both of them, I could go back to them. I just haven't gone back to them yet, because I think Ghost of Tsushima, I actually platinumed while I was playing it. I don't think I went back to go platinum anything. I think I literally collected all the trophies before I progressed to the final part of the game, and then collected the trophies that you would get part of playing the story. Death Stranding, I did go back to a New Game Plus to get the rest of the trophies, but I literally did that just for the trophies, not to really play the game anymore. I was thought about going back, but never did. So, with those honorable mentions out of the way, here it is for the top 30. I actually talked about those a little bit more than I planned on. But here is the number 30 through 21. So coming in at number 30, this one recently got a remake. I'm including both the original and the remake because to me, even though the controls are vastly different in both games, graphics are vastly different, it's still kind of the same game. So it's one of those, like, if I were to play it now, I would pick the remake, but that doesn't take away my love for the original, and that is Resident Evil 3. I could have picked 4, I could have picked 1, I could have picked 2, but I don't know what it was about 3. 3 hit at the right time, because 1, I didn't own a PlayStation yet, so I watched my buddy play it. 2, I borrowed his PlayStation and played it, but I don't think I beat 2 originally. 3 was the first one that I owned myself, and I beat all the way through. So Resident Evil 3 has always held a special place in my heart. So like when Resident Evil 2 remake got announced, I actually didn't get that right away. Wait, did I? No, I did not. I didn't get it right away. I was playing a couple other games, but then 3 came out. I got 3 day of release, and then I actually, after I beat Resident Evil 3, I went back and got 2 and played through the remake of 2. But yeah, 3, the Nemesis, I thought he was better than Mr. X, which I found out today on Game Ranks. Nowhere in actual games do they call him Mr. X. It was a strategy guide from Capcom of America that called him in early promotional items Mr. X, but nowhere in your game manual or anything official in the game is he called Mr. X. He's just the tyrant and whatever his codename is. So that was kind of something interesting to find out today, and it works for this list because I had this list written out, and this is my number 30 game. But yeah, Resident Evil 3, that I think it still is my favorite Resident Evil game. Like I haven't finished 4, the remake of 4 yet, but I've played through 1 through 4. I played a little bit of 5 with a buddy of mine when that came out, and I've played through 6. Haven't played the newer ones yet, 7 and 8. I have them, I just haven't gotten to them yet. But yeah, just 3. I think it's because the first one I own, the first one I played all the way through. I think that's why it holds a special place in my heart, and that's why Resident Evil 3 is my number 30 pick, and it's the only Resident Evil game on this list. All right, now, coming in at 29, we've got Dino Crisis for the PlayStation 1. So, boom, we're starting off with PlayStation 1 games right off the bat. It's Resident Evil engine. It's Resident Evil with dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are cooler than zombies. It ranks out above Resident Evil 3. Yeah, Dino Crisis was that Jurassic Park game we all wanted at the time. We got the 2D side scrollers from the Genesis, Super Nintendo. That were fun for what they were, but you never had like the dread of Jurassic Park, like the original movie and the book had. There was no dread there. They were action games. You were side-scrolling, shooting, running, kind of thing like that. But you were never scared. I think on the Genesis moment, there was a couple times a T-Rex popped out, which kind of a jump scare for 16-bit games. But you never had that pending feeling of dread like the characters in the movies do. But Dino Crisis, because it used that Resident Evil engine, it had that Resident Evil atmosphere, it really did give you that sense of dread that death could be lurking around the corner. So that's why that one's there, and like I said, it outranks Resident Evil 3 because dinosaurs are cooler than zombies. Alright, next up, coming in at number 28. Let me actually move my mic, so hopefully the audio wasn't too bad on the first half of this video. Sorry about that. Coming in at number 28, Jet Set Radio for the Dreamcast. It's a fun game. I mean, you're in a graffiti gang, you're tagging things, you're dancing, you're rollerblading, you're grinding, you're doing tricks, you're running from the cops, you're doing all kinds of great things. This came out, let's say it came out 2000. I really should have wrote the dates of the games on there for more detail, but I did not. I was a teenager at the time. I had to have been at least 16 because I drove to pick up my Dreamcast when it came out. So, had to have been at the very least 1999 when it came out. Well, 99. So 99, 2000 is probably when it came out. So I was 16 or 17, teenager. So I mean, that game, you were doing everything teenagers love to do, just causing mischief, getting into trouble, and things like that. It was a lot of fun. Graphically, it had the kind of the 2D cell shaded look to it. I thought it was maybe the coolest game yet to come out as far as looks were concerned. Like I thought that was the coolest game, like look wise, coming out as it did. So, boom, that 28 with a bullet on that one. So let's move it on. Next up, we have a GameCube game coming up at 27. And that is Eternal Darkness. Wow, I like how the three of the first four games are survival horror games. That was not planned. I just realized that as I was looking at Eternal Darkness. There wasn't anything like it up to it with the sanity meter and everything like that. And I don't think there's really been anything since then that has kind of captured the same thing. Maybe PT on the PlayStation 3. Spoiler, PT is not on this list, mostly because I did not download it when it came out, and it was gone before I got around to trying to download it. So I never got to play PT, so it doesn't make this list because I did not play it. But fantastic game. And yeah, just that the first time, because my buddies and I, we got it together and we were all playing it together. We were like kind of like taking turns. We bought it. I think we each bought our own copy, maybe, but we like played through an entire night. And that first time when the game, there's a scene early on where like you see your character's dead body in a bathtub, like she slit her wrist or throat or whatever. And that jump scare got us all. We were playing in the dark at night. It scared the shit out of us. And then the first time the game tells you that it's corrupted and your memory was erased, we were like, what the? And we're just pissed because we thought something happened to the GameCube, something happened to the game, the memory card. So yeah, so the game plays with you in a lot of different ways. And I think it is awesome for how it does that. And I can't hate on it for that. So yeah, Eternal Darkness, you are ranking in at number 27 on this list. So congratulations, Eternal Darkness, first GameCube game representative. So we're going kind of old school to start off. There are some modern games on here. I'll let you know. We will get to them. Don't you worry. All right, coming in at number 26, a little reprieve from the survival horror. In fact, just kind of glancing at my list, I think we're done with survival horror. Well, kind of. There's kind of survival horror later on in the countdown on future episodes. But so taking a break from the survival horror, PlayStation 1 Classic. It's a sequel to a game we might see on this list later, but Chrono Cross. And you might say, hey, you're doing series together for a lot of them. Well, like I said, the prequel to this might be on the list somewhere, but they're very different games. So because they're so different and the way they look, they play, they feel, the way they make me feel, could easily separate them, but I do love both games. And if you've watched any of my unboxings, there, you'll have a good idea where its prequel ranks. But yeah, Chrono Cross, a lot of fun. I think it was one of the first JRPGs that I played on the PlayStation 1, and definitely the first JRPG I played where you had a massive roster of characters to play with. I think you could get, my mind is saying 30 to 60 characters, somewhere around there. So just that many characters to play as, just amazing to add to your team and things like that. And because this was the height of the JRPG pre-voice things where you could name all the characters, that was a lot of fun for me as a kid, and as a teenager, just naming all the characters kind of based on their personalities, naming them as my friends and things like that. So I always loved doing that with JRPGs, which there's kind of a part of me that misses that, but at the same time, I don't want to spend all my time reading all that text that you used to have to read in those JRPGs. Oh, excuse me. So it's one of those things. I do kind of like the voice acting now, but I do kind of miss that old school naming your characters, naming them after friends, kind of thing like that. which is very sad now when I replay those old JRPGs. I just leave their regular names. I don't change them. I don't change the main character to Josh, and I don't change all the other characters' names to friends' names. So that's been lost over time, and who knows if anybody really does that anymore. Let me know in the comments if when you play those old school JRPGs where you get the name, you have the choice to name the characters, if you name them after you and your friends, because that was a lot of fun. But yeah, Chrono Cross, it follows our main character Serge. That's a Beverly Hills Cop reference for all you old folks like me, and his kind of quest to find himself back in his own reality, because he ends up in a reality where he died as a kid, so no one knows who he is, and he's on a quest to trying to get back. He needs the Chrono Cross, he needs to defeat the bad guy, and all those things. And the remake just came, well, it didn't just come out, it came out a couple years ago, and I need to start playing that again. I think I only got about halfway through the remake, but it's an enjoyable game. I've played through it a couple times on the PlayStation. Like I said, I'll probably restart it on the oh no, because I got a character that's a pain in the ass to get, so I'll just pick up where I left off, and I'll use guides to kind of point me in the right direction if I'm lost, which I tend to do when I put down a JRPG for a while and I come back as like, shit, what am I supposed to do? Let's look something up. But yeah, Chrono Cross, great game, definitely deserves to be on this list. So I don't know what more to say about that. It was just one of those games, again, JRPGs that hit at the right time for me. I was a teenager, lots of free time to play these 40 plus hour games. So complete and utter blast. I love the graphics of the FMVs, the cutscenes and everything like that. They were beautiful, some of the best FMVs I remember from the PlayStation 1 era. So that was another thing. Like, and the soundtrack was awesome, just like its predecessor. The soundtrack was just amazing. I still have the soundtrack because I got the bonus disc when I bought the game when it came out, which had several tracks from the soundtrack, and then I went and just Apple Music, I got the rest of the soundtrack. So great game, fun story, great characters, a ton of characters to choose from. And then because I didn't my final party wasn't necessarily based on the best characters to have for that final party so much as it was the characters I liked the most as far as their personality goes, who was in my final party. So great game coming in at number 26. And that leads us to 25, our first N64 game on the list. And definitely not the last N64 game on the list, because I am Nintendo at 64, so there's got to be plenty of those games on there. A fun multiplayer game, also a great single player game, but we all buy this game and the rest of the games in the series for the multiplayer. And this one I left alone. I didn't put the whole series in because a lot of the entries in this series are very unique and very different, and we all have our favorites. But this game is Mario Kart 64. And the 64 version, again, that came out when I was 8th grade, 9th grade year. Played a ton with my friends. We raced. We did 4-player races. We did 4-player battle. To me, that's still the best battle mode in all the Mario Kart games, which is why I think that one really edges like 8 Double Dash out. And also, a fun fact, I've never actually played Double Dash. I did not have that on the GameCube because my friends and I, we were still playing Mario Kart 64, so why spend $50, $60 again when I'm playing the original version? I'm still having a blast with it. So I can't really compare it to Double Dash. I can compare it to 7. I can compare it to 8. I can compare it to DS. I can compare it to the Super Nintendo version. But yeah, like I said, these games are all, it's one of those games where they're all kind of their own game. So I didn't put the whole series in there. I picked my favorite out of that series because it was a real easy pick for me as far as that series goes. I was like, Mario Kart 64, hands down, my favorite of the Mario Kart games. But my favorite thing, my friends and I, our favorite thing to do in that, there was one of the battle levels was like it was like a square, and it was 3 tiers. There was a top, middle, and bottom. We would gather up as many turtle shells, green turtle shells, as we could for a period of time, and we'd shoot them all down to the bottom. And then once we felt we had enough turtle shells down there, we went to the bottom, and that's when we would battle. So it was a little bit of skill, a little bit of luck, just a ton of chaos, but a ton of fun. So that's how we played Mario Kart 64 when it came to the battle mode, and then just the races are the races. And no one cheated to win. We didn't do any of those glitches to cheat to win. The only cheats you could do were actual like secret paths that you could take. There was no jumping off the road and trying to land to get way ahead of people. We didn't do that. Oh, damn, I'm just yawning all over the place, and I apologize for that. Hopefully you're not bored. Hopefully you're not yawning from this. But number 25, Mario Kart for the N64. And coming in at number 24, the game that made Nintendo the household name it is. If it wasn't for this game, there would be no Nintendo. And I know what you're thinking right now, Josh. How can you have Super Mario Brothers so low on your list? How is that number 24? It's not 24. You don't know your video game history, sir, ma'am. It's Donkey Kong. That's the game that made Nintendo a household name. That's the game that kicked the door into North America for Nintendo, and that is what made Nintendo what it is, at least in the United States. I mean, Nintendo still probably could have been a big video game company over in Japan, but it would have been the mega machine that it is now, selling 140 million Switches, 130 million, 35 million DSs. No, it all started with Donkey Kong, and I'm not putting the arcade, because I think I've only ever played the arcade version once. I'm putting the best home console version of it is, and no, it's not the Nintendo system. No, it's not that. It is the ColecoVision. ColecoVision had the best version of Donkey Kong. Nintendo didn't have a home console yet. They licensed out the home console ports to Coleco, so Coleco made the best version for them, not for Atari, not for Magnavox, not for anybody else. Coleco had the best version, and as far as I can tell, and I think I've seen this reported elsewhere, the Coleco version of Donkey Kong is almost a one-to-one to the arcade. And if you play the Coleco version and then you play the arcade, unless you are like Billy Mays? No, Billy Mays is Billy whatever, the Donkey Kong guy. Unless you're him, you probably were like, oh, I can't really tell the difference. So yeah, Donkey Kong, number 25. I'm sorry, number 24. Like I said, my dad, and in the honorable mentions, my dad had a ColecoVision that my mom got him for like their first anniversary. And that was the first system I ever played growing up, and I just had a blast with it. I just had so much fun playing Donkey Kong. There was Donkey Kong, there was War Games, which was mentioned in the honorable mention. There was also a game called Ladybugs, which was a Pac-Man clone, and I didn't include that in the honorable mentions because I already included Pac-Man. It's basically the same game. You just change out a yellow circle for a ladybug. So one and the same. I think those were the only games we had. Those were the only games I remember playing for the ColecoVision. But yeah, Donkey Kong, definitely one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite games or not favorite games, but favorite mini games to play on the new Nintendo World Championships. And also, I'll kick it with some Donkey Kong on the Switch, playing Nintendo Online, the NES. I wish that they'd give us the Coleco version port, though, because that is actually better than the NES port. But yeah, just a fun game. I mean, everyone knows Donkey Kong. You're Jumpman / Mario. You go up the rivets, climb the ladders, jump over barrels, jump over flames, duck under springs, climb to the top, rescue Paulina from the Big Bag Monkey. And also, fun notes on Donkey Kong, Universal Studios sued Nintendo for copyright infringement because, you know, King Kong, Donkey Kong, Nintendo didn't really do a great job of naming there. But their lawyer at the time, Jack Kirby, who would later become the vice president of Nintendo of America, and as legend goes, Nintendo named HAL Laboratories named the character Kirby after him because of him winning that lawsuit for them against Universal. He discovered that Universal hadn't really been defending or updating the copyright to Donkey Kong or to King Kong, so therefore it was technically public domain, and Nintendo could use Donkey Kong all they want, which is also why Nintendo vehemently shuts down ROM sites, things like that. It's not because they're party poopers and dicks, because, I mean, my stance is on emulation ROMs. If I can't buy the game from you, if the only way I can buy it is secondhand, I got to pay hundreds of dollars for that secondhand, I'm going to download a ROM, because I'm not stealing from you at that point. Not even stealing from anybody, because I cannot legally buy that game from the distributor, from the publisher. But the reason why Nintendo goes after these ROM sites so much is because they have to defend their copyright. because if they let all these ROM sites get out of hand, legally they're not defending their copyright, and therefore Mario, Luigi, Zelda, Link, Samus, they can all fall into public domain. They learned that lesson from defending themselves against Universal Studios with the whole Donkey Kong, King Kong thing. So Universal Studios is technically also to blame for Nintendo shutting down all your favorite ROM sites, because legally they have to do it to avoid things falling into public domain. So you learned a little legal stuff there. And I only know that because I watched the whole video on the whole Donkey Kong, King Kong thing. And it's also in the book Console Wars, which is great. Definitely check that out if you love video game history, especially the Sega Nintendo Console Wars. So 24 is Donkey Kong for the ColecoVision. We're on the home stretch now. Number 23, it's another N64 game. See, Nintendo 64. We got more 64 games on here for you, and it is Star Fox 64. I could have said Star Fox and Star Fox 64 in here, but 64 is a definite upgrade. I mean, it's literally just a remake of Star Fox, just with better graphics, better controls. That was like my Star Wars game for a while. Like, I love the Star Fox series, but there are a couple levels in Star Fox 64 that are very reminiscent of Star Wars. So I would like, after I beat the game, I'd go back and play that game a lot. I'd replay some of those levels that remind me of Star Wars, and I'd pretend I was Luke in his X-Wing, or Han in the Millennium Falcon, things like that, and redo those levels just in a Star Wars mindset. But no, it's probably my favorite vehicle shooting game. I don't know how to describe that. Third person vehicle game, like aerial combat kind of game. You know, you got your Ace Combats and things like that. Star Fox 64, just a blast. My buddies and I would play the multiplayer a lot, but I was so good at that game because I played that game more than any of my friends. We didn't play it too much because I would just own them like no one's business. So we just didn't play it that much because I was, unlike pretty much all the other N64 multiplayer games we played, where we were all kind of on the same level. Like, there was a couple of us, you know, a little bit better than the others, but when you're playing like 4 players and stuff like that, if you're only slightly better, that gets thrown out the window because there's all those monkey wrenches from the other players. But that particular game, I was so much better than everyone else because I played it all the time. So I knew all the controls. I was very precise. So yeah, that was just a blast game for me. And like I said, because of the branching paths, I think there's 3 branching paths. It's been a while since I played it. I did rebuy it on the 3DS, Star Fox 64 3D, and played it a lot, even more then. So I think I've beaten all 3 paths. I think there's 3 paths. There might be more than 3. I'm trying to remember because I last played through the game, beating all the branching paths in the early 2000s, 2010s, whenever the 3DS came out. So that was the last time I really played through it, and I've played it a couple times on the N64, but not like that, like I did back in the day. So pardon me if I don't remember how many branching paths. I know there's at least 3, and from those 3 there might be a couple other branching paths, but I think they send you to another path. So I mean, technically there's only 3 paths to go, and you just go back and forth between the 2. But Star Fox 64 there. And these last two, 22 and 21, are both SNES games. And honestly, they could be interchangeable on the list, and I think I'm going to make a judgment call right here. I'm going to flip them. So what was going to be 22 is now 21, and what was 21 is now going to be 22. I actually just played this game and beat it through with my 2 sons and our foreign exchange student. So if you're watching this, Cyprian, hope everything's going well in France. Hopefully you got to go to some of the Olympic Games that you were hoping to go to when you got back. But we played the 1UP Arcade version that I have up here in the game room, and that is Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. I think it's Ninja Turtles 4 when it goes through the Konami numbering. But Turtles in Time. More specifically, the SNES version, the 2 versions are a little bit different. There's more levels in the SNES version and a little bit different gameplay, especially when you fight Shredder as the final boss. But yeah, Turtles in Time, just a blast with my buddies. I didn't even know it was an arcade game until I was an adult, because I never saw it at the arcade. I just saw the original Ninja Turtles arcade game at arcades when I was a kid. And Turtles in Time, I only knew for the SNES version. And always, the numbering always kind of weirded me out that it was Turtles 4, because I remember Turtles 1, the original Ultra / Konami game, and then I remember Ninja Turtles the arcade game port, which I believe was Ninja Turtles 2. I have no idea to this day what Turtles 3 is. I'd have to look that up. But and then TMNT Turtles in Time was number 4. So the numbering always threw me off, kind of thing like that as a kid. I didn't realize they were, and 3 could even be on the Genesis, just the way Konami numbered everything. But Turtles in Time was a lot of fun. My buddies and I would always play it like 2-player. I remember my good buddy Mike, him and I playing as kids, constantly playing through that game. We beat that game so many times. And again, that's how games made this list and weren't honorable mentions. They were games that, even though I beat it, came back a lot to play. So Turtles in Time, definitely one of those games. So that comes in at number 2. And like I said, I flip-flop 2 SNES games. This one came out towards the end of the Super Nintendo life, and also was the game that solidified Nintendo over Sega in the 16-bit wars. I didn't know that until I read Console Wars. So I learned several new things from Console Wars, but I knew a lot of it. But this was something I didn't know. I didn't realize that this was the game that finally put the nail in Sega's coffin in the 16-bit wars. But Donkey Kong Country, and again, I could have put the whole series in it, 1 through 3. But again, because you play as different DK characters in those games, they're a little bit different, but also much like the Mario Kart series, Donkey Kong Country, the original one, is clearly my favorite, hands down, easily. I think a lot of people love number 2. I think 2, like if you poll people, maybe I'll poll people after this comes out on the YouTube channel. If you poll a lot of people, I think a lot of them will say Donkey Kong Country 2 is their favorite. And I would not hold that against you. Donkey Kong 2 is a great game, but like I said, for whatever reason, because maybe it was the first one I played, maybe because I just anticipated and wanted Donkey Kong Country so badly when it was announced, and I got it for Christmas the year it came out, is why I had to have it, and it's my favorite, because just the anticipation. And it's one of those games, growing up, you want something so bad when you finally get it, it doesn't meet your expectations. Well, Donkey Kong Country met my expectations and exceeded them. So it was a great game. In fact, like a fun story, so I played it mostly by myself, but I remember my parents were throwing a New Year's Eve party that year, and like I said, I got it for Christmas, so I'd only had the game for a week at that point. And between that and my other toys and probably other games that I got, I wasn't playing it nonstop, but I was playing it a lot. But I had set a goal that I was going to beat it on New Year's Eve. So me and a few of my friends, 2 of my friends, both named Josh, were over. And I'm not throwing out any last names here, but they were both named Josh. I played baseball and football with both of them. And they were over with a couple other friends because my parents were throwing a big party. So they were friends with their parents, so they came, things like that. We were just incessant on beating that, and not only were we there in my room playing that game, but my sister and her friends were watching us, and some of the other little kids from other adults who were at the party who brought their kids, who were kind of younger than us, so they weren't really our friends. We were nice, but they weren't our friends. They were watching us. It was this big gathering of 10 and under kids, just focused on Donkey Kong Country, and that was it was such a cool kind of core memory, core experience growing up. Something you don't see that much these days with all of us connecting on the internet and things like that, but just a bunch of kids together playing one video game. We were doing it 2-player because you could do 2-player with DK and Diddy. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, and it was a couple minutes before midnight when we actually beat the game. So we beat it before New Year's, which was my goal. So that was just a very fun experience, which is why Donkey Kong Country is easily my favorite of the Donkey Kong Country series, just because of that memory, mostly. it was that memory right there. But yeah, that was kind of the game that really made Rare a household name for Nintendo fans, and I still lament Microsoft buying Rare. Rare came to Nintendo first. It's Nintendo, why didn't you buy Rare? Because you're just kind of we probably could have gotten some cool Banjo-Kazooie games out of it. I mean, Retro's done a good job with Donkey Kong, so I don't think Rare. I mean, Rare might have done a better job, but I mean, you can't really complain about what Retro Studios has done. So, but we definitely probably would have gotten some more Banjo games, and who knows what else like Rare would have created for Nintendo, because Microsoft was kind of like they let them do nuts and bolts, and they're like, all right, that didn't sell well. Perfect Dark didn't sell well. You guys are doing Connect games now, so you're doing Connect games, and then they've done Sea of Thieves, and I played the first couple seasons of Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves is not on this list, but it just didn't hook me, and I don't know, it didn't have that flair Rare games have like they used to on the Nintendo, like Banjo, Donkey Kong, even like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. There's just or Conker's Bad Fur Day, which Conker's Bad Fur Day is an honorable mention. I didn't write it down for an honorable mention, but talking about it right now, boom, that's definitely an honorable mention. And so yeah, it was one of those things that was very sad when Rare went to Microsoft. Even though like I was like lamenting the loss because I'll always be a Nintendo person, but I had an Xbox, so it wasn't like I was losing Rare. Like whatever games they made for the Xbox, I could still play. But I just kind of felt it. There was a sense of dread. I was like, I just don't feel Microsoft is going to let Rare do what Nintendo let Rare do, especially with like Nintendo IPs, because we were going to get like a Donkey Kong Racing to be a sequel to Diddy Kong Racing. There was like all these things reportedly in the works for like the GameCube and stuff like that coming from Rare that we just did not get because they went over to Microsoft, and those ideas they tried to repurpose for Microsoft and they got axed. So yeah, so we definitely lost out on probably some really classic games that might have made this list had Nintendo actually bought Rare when Rare wanted them to, instead of Rare going to Microsoft. So yeah, so that closes out the number 30 through 21. Let me know what you think of this list. Like I said, I'm going to obviously go all the way to number 1. I think this is going to be weekly. I think I'll do the next episode for next week. But yeah, enjoy this list right here. I plan on this one is not going to have any game capture, mostly because I'm on crunch with this one because I'm going on vacation, and I wanted to get this first part done before I went on vacation, just for content for this week. So you guys didn't miss anything. But the next two will definitely have more. They'll have screen grabs. They'll have hopefully some game capture. We'll see how that goes, because this video is actually way longer than I expected to be. I thought this was going to be like a 10-15 minute video, and it's looking to push 45 minutes at this point. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Let me know what some of your top games are. Try to take a guess at 20 through 1. Just try to take a guess at 20 through 1 what you think they're going to be. There's some gems on there. Like I said, there's some modern games. There's SNES, there's N64, 360, PlayStation 3, games like that. So thank you for watching. Again, like, subscribe, definitely comment. Comment definitely helps with the algorithm. So comment with some of your favorite games. And until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.